Before we begin, viewer discretion is strongly advised. The following is for educational and entertainment purposes only. This is the verbatim federal courtroom testimony from the Sean Diddy Combs trial, as reported by Inner City Press. So, courtroom was dead silent as the judge called the next witness. All eyes turned toward the back as a familiar figure stepped forward. Usher Raymond. Yes, that Usher, the Grammy-winning R&B icon. But this wasn't about music, fame, or a label dispute. This was about truth. And for the first time, Usher was ready to tell it. For years, he smiled for cameras, dodged the rumors, and played the part. But now, with Diddy under federal indictment for trafficking, coercion, and leading a criminal enterprise of abuse, Usher had decided to speak, and what he revealed shook the courtroom to its core. Usher began by recalling the moment his mother told him he'd be moving to New York to live with Diddy. He was only 14, fresh off his debut album, filled with dreams and ambition. L.A. Reid had arranged the mentorship, convinced it would accelerate Usher's path to superstardom. But Usher testified that he didn't find mentorship. He found madness. From the moment he entered Diddy's Midtown penthouse, he was surrounded by opulence and chaos. Champagne with breakfast, strangers passed out in locked rooms, celebrities walking around half-dressed. They called it flavor camp. At first, Usher thought it was branding. Later, he understood it meant indulgence. He wasn't taught music. He wasn't guided as an artist. Diddy simply told him, "This is how we do it. You don't ask questions. You just watch." Then came the night Usher could never forget. Around 3 a.m., he woke to music playing softly and the flicker of candlelight in the hallway. He followed the sound and saw masked figures entering the apartment. The living room had transformed. There were lists, there were cameras, there was order, like a ritual. "I thought I walked onto a movie set," he said. "But I knew I shouldn't be seeing what I saw." Someone told him to go back to bed. He did, but he never slept again the same way. The courtroom sat motionless as Usher explained how no one had warned him. Not his label, not his mother, not a single adult. Because the people who knew the truth about Diddy's world were too afraid to speak it. "People thought he was eccentric," Usher said. "They didn't realize he had control. Quiet, absolute control." He testified that if Diddy liked you, doors opened. But if you ever went against him, those doors slammed shut. Usher didn't cry. He didn't flinch. But the words carried the weight of every year he kept this inside. He described the fear, the industry-wide fear, that surrounded Diddy, and how it didn't just protect him. It empowered him. "I thought I was going to learn how to be a star," Usher said. "Instead, I learned how silence is bought, and how quickly truth is buried." The jury leaned in, no longer just listening to a celebrity. They were listening to a witness, a survivor, a child caught in a system that no one stopped, and too many enabled. Usher's final words weren't loud. They didn't need to be. "The truth," he said, "has been eating me alive." As he stepped down from the stand, a ripple passed through the courtroom. Reporters noted how Diddy's hands trembled. His attorney whispered urgently. And for the first time, the jury didn't just see a man accused, they saw the empire behind him. The silence that kept it standing. The power that demanded obedience. And the young lives it swept into darkness. Usher didn't come to destroy Diddy. He came to free himself. And in doing so, he may have changed the trial and the entire industry forever. Silence was part of the deal. Usher told the jury there were others like him, young artists brought in with promises of stardom, only to be slowly pulled into Diddy's orbit in ways they didn't fully understand. He didn't name names, yet, but he hinted that others would come forward. "There were people around us who saw," he said. "Assistants, drivers, other musicians. Everybody acted like it was normal, but deep down, they knew." His voice didn't rise, but the weight of his words filled the room. "The adults failed us." And then came one of the most disturbing parts of his testimony, a trip to the Caribbean, arranged when he was just 15. It was framed as a retreat. No cameras, no press, just Diddy, Usher, and a few others. "That's where I realized," he said, I wasn't there to learn anything about music." He paused. The silence dragged. "I won't go into everything," he continued. "But what I will say is, I wasn't given a choice about the environment I was placed in." It took him years, he said, to understand the manipulation, to see the grooming. After that trip, the relationship changed. Diddy became more controlling. There were always new people, more parties, more rules. And whenever Usher tried to push back, he was reminded, harshly, who held the keys to his career. He told me, "You don't bite the hand that feeds you. Remember who gave you this life." Usher didn't look away. "You didn't give me this life," he said, eyes locked on Diddy from the witness stand. "You gave me nightmares." The next portion of his testimony left the courtroom, reeling. Usher described being handed a contract at age 16, one that included a confidentiality clause. At the time, he thought it was a normal NDA to protect company secrets, but hidden in the legal jargon was something darker. It included specific language about private events, about discretion, he said. "At the time, I didn't even know what half the words meant." His mother had to co-sign. The label's lawyers insisted it was standard. "But now," Usher said, "I know what it really was. A contract to keep me quiet." He signed it, trusted them. That trust, he testified, bought his silence for years. He said the clause came back to haunt him in 2009. He was preparing for an interview with a major publication when the questions started getting too personal. "Suddenly, I got a call," Usher said. "Bad Boy's old legal team. They reminded me of the NDA. They said, 'We hope you're not trying to jeopardize your reputation.'" He canceled the interview. But it wasn't just lawyers. He claimed he received veiled threats from people still orbiting Diddy, people he hadn't seen in years. "You think you're done with that world," he said, "but it's never done with you. And if you step out of line, there are consequences, not just to your career, but to your safety." The courtroom froze as Usher reached into his briefcase and pulled out a physical copy of the NDA. The judge reviewed it and allowed it into evidence. It included language about audiovisual documentation, unauthorized reproduction, and exclusive rights, phrases that now echoed with a sinister tone in light of the rumored freak-off video vault. Usher's voice cracked. "That document made me feel like I was crazy," he said. "Like what I saw, what I felt, wasn't real, because I wasn't allowed to say it out loud." His voice wavered as he set the paper down, but his words hung in the air like smoke. In that moment, the jury wasn't just witnessing a pop star's truth. They were seeing the cost of silence and the invisible chains that bound a generation of talent to Diddy's empire. Usher described a lesser-known moment from 1996, when he was just 17 years old. Diddy had taken him to an exclusive mansion party in Atlanta, a moment that would forever alter how he viewed the man he once considered a mentor. At first, it seemed like just another glamorous industry event. Diddy was in full party host mode. The mansion was packed with celebrities, models, and a few unfamiliar men who didn't appear to have any ties to the music industry. The house itself was breathtaking. Marble floors, a live DJ spinning until sunrise, heavy security at every door. But Usher said it wasn't the wealth or the fame that left a mark. It was what he called the secret room. Diddy, he said, whispered something to one of the guards, and a locked door at the back of the mansion opened. "You're not ready for that yet," Diddy told him with a grin. But Usher peeked inside anyway, and what he saw would haunt him. "There were people in masks," he told the court. "That's all I'll say." He said at the time he didn't understand what he was witnessing, but even then, something felt deeply off. "I think that night changed me," Usher said softly, causing an audible shift in the courtroom. "I saw things I still can't explain. I don't know if it was legal, but I know it wasn't right." He then produced photocopied pages from an old journal he began keeping in 1998. Originally started as a place to jot down lyrics and creative ideas, it soon became a vault of memories, some dark, some incriminating. One entry from March 1999 recounted a dinner with Diddy and 3 unknown executives. They talked about loyalty, saying, "Loyalty keeps you on tour. Honesty puts you back home." Diddy had laughed, but Usher hadn't. Another entry dated, October 2000 described a Thursday night party he declined to attend. Too many secrets, too many masks. Diddy says it's just the culture. I don't agree. Did you ever tell anyone about these entries? The prosecutor asked. Usher shook his head. I was afraid, he admitted, afraid of losing everything. I didn't think anyone would believe me. And why speak now? Because I've lived with it long enough, he said, and it's time the truth comes out. He leaned closer to the microphone and revealed something he claimed he had never shared, not even with his closest friends. In 1997, at just 18, Diddy invited him to Miami to meet a powerful music investor, someone who could bankroll his first world tour. Diddy hyped it as a life-changing moment. He told me to dress up, look sharp, be polite, Usher recalled. But when he arrived at the penthouse suite at the Sadai Hotel, he found 3 men in robes, drinking champagne, with several silent young women in the background. One of them asked me if I wanted to be remembered forever, Usher said. He wasn't talking about music. He paused. The silence was electric. Diddy left me alone with them. I felt trapped, Usher said. They didn't touch me. But one of them put a hand on my shoulder and said, "You can stay or you can leave, but you'll never get another invitation like this again." Usher said he left, and that's when, in his words, everything changed. He claimed, a major tour opportunity disappeared. A prominent producer suddenly pulled out. No one said why, but Usher said the timing wasn't a coincidence. After that night, doors that were always open suddenly slammed shut, he told the court. The connections dried up, the energy around him shifted, and the unspoken threat, he said, lingered. A few weeks later, the nightmare deepened. Usher testified that Diddy showed him a disturbing clip from a handheld camera. The footage, he said, was grainy, but intentional. It wasn't a home video, he stated. It was something else, something planned. He didn't describe it in full, but he made it clear it involved people from Diddy's inner circle, and that what he saw further convinced him that what happened in the shadows of Diddy's world was far more sinister than anyone dared to imagine. The courtroom sat in stunned silence as the weight of Usher's words settled into the air, heavy and undeniable. This wasn't just testimony. This was a reckoning. He laughed as he played it back. The footage was of another young artist, someone Usher knew well, doing something he was sure that artist would never have consented to, not unless someone had coerced him. Did Diddy threaten you? The attorney asked. Usher paused. He didn't have to, he replied. The people around him did. They didn't use words. They used silence and exile. That, Usher explained, was the moment he truly understood that in Diddy's world, fame wasn't about talent anymore. It was about submission, control, fear. That's how you stayed famous, he said grimly. The courtroom sat still as the weight of that statement echoed. Usher's voice then softened as he leaned closer to the mic. This is the hardest part, he said quietly, because now it's not about me anymore. He began to speak about Justin Bieber. In the early days of Bieber's career, Usher had been his champion, co-signing him, mentoring him, guiding him into the spotlight. I wanted to be the big brother I never had, he said. At first, it was all good, all positive. But then Diddy stepped in. According to Usher, Diddy started inviting Bieber to private parties, using the same phrase he had once used with Usher, flavor camp. Bieber was only 15. They were treating him like a grown man, Usher said, his voice low. Then, in 2011, Usher received a late-night call. Bieber was on the other end. He didn't say anything at first, Usher recalled. I just heard breathing. Then he said, I want to come home. For 2 days afterward, no one could reach Bieber. When Usher finally saw him again, Bieber wouldn't meet his eyes. All he said was, "It's fine, I'm good now." But Usher testified, he wasn't. Usher said he confronted Diddy privately, asking him directly, "What are you doing to these kids?" He told the court that Diddy chuckled and said, "Same thing they did to me. It's how the game works." That was the last serious conversation they had. After that, I stepped back, Usher said. I didn't want my name tied to it. But watching what happened to Justin, I couldn't stay silent anymore. The courtroom was silent as he revealed something he had never told anyone before. In 2018, he received a call from an anonymous number. A voice said, "Tell him to keep his mouth shut, or we'll shut it for him." When asked who he thought was behind the call, Usher didn't hesitate. He looked straight at the defense table. "I think you know," he said. Usher then spoke about what he called the breaking point, the moment his relationship with Diddy shattered beyond repair. It was during a now infamous night that had never been publicly discussed until now. According to his testimony, it was a private party at a hidden estate in the Hollywood Hills in 2002. It was supposed to be a meet and greet with a producer from Europe, but what Usher walked into was something else entirely. There were no producers, no executives, just dim lighting, tight security at every entrance, and a thick, eerie aura of secrecy. He described phones being confiscated at the door, and guests, many of whom were young artists or models, being handed NDAs that read more like intimidation contracts. The vibe was wrong, Usher said, his voice reportedly breaking. For the first time during his testimony, there were people there who weren't artists. They weren't executives. He paused. I realized they were just there to watch. His words hung heavy in the air. The courtroom, transfixed, felt the gravity of what he was implying but wouldn't say aloud. Whatever happened that night, Usher made it clear. It changed him. It shifted his understanding of the world he'd once been so desperate to be part of. And now, with the cameras rolling, the nation watching, and the truth finally coming out, Usher wasn't just telling his story. He was exposing an entire system. Observers in the courtroom leaned in as Usher described what he saw that night. Familiar faces, some of them household names, scattered among the shadows. He recognized celebrities who had never been publicly linked to Diddy, and while he refused to name them on record, he hinted at a looming wave of revelations. If this trial continues, he said slowly, others will come forward. But the most chilling part of his testimony came when he tried to leave the party early. A man he didn't recognize intercepted him and ushered him into a side room. Diddy was seated, alone, waiting. Usher remembered his words clearly. You're not ready yet. You still think this is about music? This is bigger than that. After that night, Usher swore he never returned to another one of Diddy's parties. Shifting from the personal to the professional, Usher's testimony began to tear apart the business dealings that had long propped up Bad Boy Records. For the first time, he presented internal emails and contract drafts in court. These revealed that as a teenager, he had unknowingly signed a development deal that locked him into 5 albums and stripped him of the rights to his masters until he turned the 5. I didn't know what I was signing, he said plainly. I just wanted to sing. Usher went on to allege that Diddy had used similar tactics with other artists, Carl Thomas, Total, Black Rob, and the late Craig Mack among them. Promises of mentorship and exposure were dangled like carrots, only to be pulled away the moment an artist became too difficult or too independent. One of the most damning pieces of evidence came in the form of a spreadsheet. A private accountant had once sent Usher a breakdown of the royalties he had been denied over the years. The total? Over $4.3 million. When he confronted Diddy about it, the mogul reportedly laughed and said, "If you knew what was really owed to you, you wouldn't sleep at night." It was a line that rattled the courtroom. Usher also revealed that several artists had accepted quiet settlements, trading silence for the right to use their own names or perform their songs again. And in a revelation that drew audible gasps, he said he once tried to organize a secret, meeting with other artists in 2011 to unite and speak out. But the plan was foiled. Someone tipped Diddy off, he said. The meeting never happened. Then came a moment that chilled the room to its core. Usher testified that he personally witnessed Diddy ordering the destruction of demo tapes and video footage belonging to an artist who had threatened to go public. That artist, Usher said, has since vanished. I don't know where he is. Nobody does. But I remember his voice, and I remember that he was scared. The room fell completely silent, and as the prosecutor prepared to close, the final question was the most painful. Why didn't you come forward sooner? Usher's response was heartbreaking. Because I thought I owed him, he said through tears. I thought if I stayed silent, I could move on and still be grateful. But you can't. Be grateful for a lie. Journal, the one he had never shared until now. It was dated the night he walked away from Diddy's mentorship forever. I survived Puffy, it read. But did the kid in me survive? I still don't know. As Usher looked toward the judge and jury, his voice steady and resolute, he ended his testimony. Not as a celebrity, but as a man unburdened at last. Usher's final words echoed across a courtroom that had fallen completely still. This isn't just about one man, he said, his voice steady but full of weight. It's about an entire system that told kids like me to be quiet, to stay in line, and to never question the hands that fed us. But I'm here now, and I'm not afraid anymore. Not for me, because I've already lived through it. I'm doing this for the ones who didn't. That single declaration shifted the tone of the entire trial. What had started as a federal case centered around racketeering and trafficking charges now felt like something far larger. A long overdue reckoning for decades of silence, manipulation, and emotional abuse in the music industry. What the public had never known until now was that, at the peak of his fame in 2001, just after the release of his multi-platinum album 8701, Usher vanished from the spotlight for a week. Whispers in the industry said he was simply taking a break from an exhausting tour. But in court, Usher revealed a truth far more haunting. He had checked himself into a private mental health facility in Northern California under a false name. The breakdown that sent him there, he testified, was triggered by trauma he'd buried since his teenage years living with Diddy. He had begun experiencing sudden panic attacks after turning 20. They came without warning. Flashing lights, loud music, tight crowds, ordinary things that suddenly became unbearable. It wasn't until a stay in a New York hotel that the full weight of the past came crashing back. He walked into a hallway and immediately froze. I smelled the same brand of candles he used to burn, Usher said quietly. My whole body locked up. I started shaking. I couldn't breathe. His team rushed him to the clinic where he remained under observation for 5 days. There he finally opened up to an in-house psychiatrist. What he shared that week, he told the jury, had never been spoken aloud to anyone before. I told him I saw things no kid should see. I lived in a world where power meant silence, and survival meant smiling through it. That house wasn't just a celebrity crash pad. It was, as he described it, a place where dreams were sold, but your soul was the price. The psychiatrist's diagnosis hit hard: post-traumatic stress disorder. The courtroom gasped. Fans online were shaken. It had taken nearly 2 full years of therapy before Usher could sleep through the night without waking in cold sweats, haunted by the memories. And while he never named names, Usher hinted that others had endured similar fates. Young artists, pulled in by the same promises, only to be chewed up by the same machinery. I was lucky. I had money. I could afford help, but some of them couldn't. He recalled one artist who overdosed, another who attempted suicide, a third, gone without a trace, just disappeared. When asked why he had kept it all a secret, for over 20 years, Usher didn't hesitate. Because nobody would have believed me in 2001, he said. Puffy was untouchable, and I was just the kid with the voice. But now, things were different. Now the world is ready to listen. And listen they did. As the courtroom remained still, the weight of his words lingered like fog. This wasn't just a confession, it was a quiet revolution, a sobering reminder that behind the glitz and platinum plaques, behind the Grammys and the record-breaking tours, there may have been a silent war raging inside a young artist's mind. And finally, after decades of suppression, Usher had chosen to fight back, not just for himself, but for every voice that had ever been drowned out by the music.